In October of 1983, a classified Soviet naval station located somewhere along the Black Sea reportedly conducted an experiment so unusual that several personnel involved later disappeared from official records entirely. According to the file, the objective was simple: manipulate localized electromagnetic fields beneath the waterline. But what the station allegedly discovered had nothing to do with communication. It had something to do with time. The facility itself never appeared on civilian maps. Satellite analysts years later would refer to it only as Site 12, a concrete structure carved directly into coastal rock, protected by radar nets, anti-submarine barriers, and layers of Soviet military secrecy. Officially, it didn't exist, but according to leaked maintenance documents recovered in the early 1990s, Site 12 consumed more electrical power than entire nearby towns. No explanation was ever given. And then one night, the clocks stopped agreeing with each other. The document states that on October 14th, at exactly 2:13 a.m., technicians initiated what was called phase echo. The experiment involved massive underwater resonance transmitters buried beneath the seafloor. The purpose allegedly involved submarine detection. At least, that was the cover story, because several pages later, another phrase appears: temporal displacement observation. Nobody explained what that meant, but surviving fragments from internal logs describe strange effects almost immediately after activation. Security cameras desynchronized. Tape recordings developed missing seconds. And one operator claimed the station siren repeated the same 6-second sound loop for nearly 20 minutes. At first, commanders blamed faulty electronics. Cold War equipment failed all the time. But then personnel started reporting something worse. People inside the station began experiencing different lengths of time. One technician reportedly believed he had worked an entire 12-hour shift. But according to every clock in the facility, only 40 minutes had passed. Another officer claimed the exact opposite. He insisted he had blacked out for only seconds. In reality, he had been missing for nearly 3 hours. And then came the hallway incident. A surveillance report describes 2 guards walking through Corridor C at 3:11 a.m. The corridor itself was only 18 meters long, but the guards never emerged from the opposite side. Not immediately. The camera continued recording an empty hallway for over 7 minutes. Then suddenly, both men reappeared at the end of the corridor, visibly distressed. One was reportedly vomiting. The other refused to speak for the remainder of the night. But according to both guards, they had only walked for a few seconds. The next morning, the station physician documented severe neurological symptoms among 12 personnel: migraines, nosebleeds, memory fragmentation. Several individuals reportedly forgot conversations that had occurred only minutes earlier. One sailor allegedly failed to recognize his own reflection for nearly 30 seconds. But the most disturbing detail wasn't medical. It was mechanical. Every analog clock inside Laboratory Wing B had stopped at exactly 3:17 a.m. Every digital clock continued running normally. Nobody could explain why. According to recovered engineering diagrams, the experiment relied on rotating electromagnetic fields generated beneath the seabed. Massive copper coils, cooling chambers, pulse amplifiers, enough energy to destabilize nearby communications for kilometers. But hidden among the technical notes, investigators later discovered repeated references to something called field drift. Not equipment drift, not signal drift, field drift. And the notes attached to it became increasingly alarming. One sentence reportedly appeared 3 separate times in red ink. Exposure duration no longer matches observer duration. No author signature was attached. No explanation followed. Only timestamps. And those timestamps themselves contained inconsistencies. Some appeared out of order. Others referenced hours that technically hadn't happened yet, as if the reports were written before events occurred. Then the station lost external radio contact for exactly 9 minutes. Nearby naval patrols reportedly attempted communication repeatedly. No response. Radar operators later claimed Site 12 briefly vanished from tracking systems entirely. Not destroyed. Not hidden. Simply absent. Then it returned. Power levels surged, and emergency alarms activated throughout the base. A maintenance worker named Viktor Myrov allegedly entered reactor chamber 2 shortly after the alarms began. His assignment was routine: manual coolant inspection. He never completed it. When security teams located him 32 minutes later, he was standing motionless beside the chamber wall, still alive, still conscious, but completely unresponsive. The official report claimed severe psychological shock, but according to handwritten annotations later added to the file, Victor kept repeating the same sentence, over and over. It already happened tomorrow. No one understood what he meant. Interrogation attempts reportedly continued for 2 days. Every interview ended the same way: confusion, disorientation, and eventually silence. Then something stranger happened. Personnel reviewing security footage from Reactor Chamber 2 noticed an unexplained visual anomaly. For approximately 4 frames, Victor appeared twice in the same recording. 2 overlapping positions, separated by less than a meter, like duplicated film exposure. Except the cameras were analog magnetic systems, not cinema equipment. Soviet investigators initially blamed tape corruption, but technicians found no damage. No warping, no magnetic burn, nothing. And then analysts slowed the footage frame by frame. What they reportedly discovered triggered immediate archive restrictions, because one of the overlapping figures appeared to move slightly earlier than the other, as if one version of Victor reacted before the event itself occurred. At 4:41 a.m., phase echo was terminated, or at least, commanders believed it was. The transmitters powered down. Cooling systems stabilized. Electrical consumption returned to normal. But according to multiple witness accounts, the effects didn't stop. Several personnel claimed the station still felt wrong. Conversations repeated. Footsteps echoed before movement occurred. One engineer reportedly heard his own voice speaking from an empty room. And then the final incident occurred. The file refers to it only as Event Blackwater. No full description survives. Most pages connected to the event were either destroyed or intentionally removed. But surviving fragments suggest a containment failure somewhere beneath the underwater generator array. Pressure alarms activated. Emergency bulkheads sealed automatically. And 34 personnel became trapped below level 4. Official Soviet naval records state that a fire caused the casualties. But recovered engineering notes tell a different story, because several rescue teams reportedly reached sealed sections and found no fire damage at all. Instead, witnesses described something impossible. Clocks inside the flooded chambers were all running at different speeds. Some advanced rapidly, others barely moved. One allegedly spun backward, and survivors recovered from level 4 later gave contradictory statements about how long they had been trapped. Some believed only minutes had passed. Others insisted they had been underground for days. Yet all were rescued simultaneously. Then came the blackout. At approximately 5:02 a.m., every recording device inside site, 12 failed simultaneously. Audio tapes erased themselves. Film reels exposed into white static. Magnetic archives corrupted beyond recovery, at least officially, because according to rumors inside former Soviet intelligence circles, one tape survived. A single VHS transfer copied by accident during the confusion. The tape allegedly contained 27 seconds of footage from Corridor C, the same hallway where the guards disappeared earlier that night. Nobody publicly released the recording. But a former translator who reportedly reviewed the material in 1994 described it during a private interview. He claimed the footage showed the corridor stretching impossibly far beyond its physical dimensions. Lights flickering, walls distorting, and at the far end of the hallway, a figure standing completely motionless, not moving, not approaching, just watching. The translator reportedly ended the interview immediately afterward and refused all future contact. The Soviet Union collapsed less than a decade later. Countless classified projects vanished into fragmented archives. Sight, 12 was supposedly abandoned by 1991. Satellite imagery from later years showed collapsed docks, corroded radar towers, and partially submerged structures near the coastline. But according to regional fishermen, strange electrical interference reportedly continued in the area long afterward. Boat radios failing, compasses drifting, mechanical watches stopping without warning. Then in 2004, divers exploring restricted waters near the former site allegedly discovered something unusual beneath the seabed. Not wreckage, not military debris, but massive circular structures buried beneath layers of sediment. Copper-lined, artificial, too symmetrical to be natural. The divers photographed only part of it before naval authorities intervened. The images disappeared shortly afterward, but one detail reportedly remained consistent across witness descriptions. The structures resembled gigantic concentric rings, like antennas, or something designed to generate a field. And maybe that's what Site 12 truly was. Not a weapon, not a radar system, but an attempt to manipulate perception itself, to alter the relationship between observer and time. During the Cold War, both the United States and the Soviet Union explored extreme theories involving consciousness, electromagnetism, and human perception. Most failed, at least publicly. But according to the fragments connected to case file Kraken 12, one experiment may have gone further than intended, because several internal memos recovered years later contain references to personnel experiencing recurring dreams after exposure to phase echo. The dreams were always described similarly: long corridors, flooded rooms, emergency sirens, and clocks displaying impossible times. 3:17. Again and again. The exact moment every analog clock stopped inside Laboratory Wing B. One memo reportedly warned future researchers against repeating the experiment under any circumstances. Not because the machinery failed, but because the machinery may have succeeded. The final line of the document remains partially redacted, but according to transcription notes, it allegedly read, "Observer separation cannot be reversed after prolonged exposure." No further explanation exists. And maybe that's the most unsettling part of the entire story. Not the missing minutes, not the distorted recordings, not even the duplicated figure captured on magnetic tape, but the possibility that something inside Site 12 briefly disrupted the normal sequence of cause and effect, even slightly. Because if perception itself can drift, then reality becomes impossible to measure reliably. And during the Cold War, governments were willing to test almost anything. Today, the exact location of Site 12 remains uncertain. Some researchers claim it never existed. Others believe the entire story originated from fragmented Soviet disinformation campaigns designed to confuse Western intelligence. That's possible. But certain archived maintenance references connected to the Black Sea naval sector do appear authentic, at least according to independent analysts. And then there's the final anomaly. In 2011, a retired communications officer allegedly submitted a sealed testimony to a private historical archive in Eastern Europe. The testimony was never released publicly, but one archivist who briefly reviewed the document described a single disturbing claim. The officer insisted that during the blackout at Site 12, one transmission still continued broadcasting beneath all emergency frequencies. A repeating signal. Weak. Distorted, almost buried in static. And according to the archivist, the signal contained a human voice. The voice allegedly repeated only one sentence. Not in code, not encrypted, just spoken calmly over and over again. "Do not let them start phase echo again." Then the transmission ended. No verified recordings have ever surfaced publicly. No official Soviet documents acknowledge the experiment. And no surviving personnel have spoken openly on record. But somewhere beneath the Black Sea coastline, the remains of Site 12 may still exist. Flooded, collapsed, silent, or maybe not completely silent. Because according to regional maritime reports filed years later, unexplained radio interference is still occasionally detected near abandoned military waters connected to the old naval sector. Interference that appears only briefly, usually late at night, and sometimes for exactly 6 seconds.